Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path because every trail has a story and this one's ours.
I'm Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl. And tonight we're joined by...
Katie Lowe, special guest.
Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I think all of our listeners know that we are just about 1 week out now from the JFK50 miler. And so tonight we thought we would sit around and tell some stories about our experience with the JFK. But Adam, would you like to kick us off with maybe just a quick overview of the course?
Yeah, of course. So the JFK 50 miler, I like to tell people that it's kind of like a triathlon where there are three different races within the one race. So the first part of the race, we start at Boonesboro on Main Street, 6:30 in the morning, and runners run 2.5 miles on the road up to South Mountain Inn. And then we go about a half a mile on the Appalachian Trail for running another 2 mile section on access roads. So that first 4.5 miles, runners actually gain about 1,200 feet. So, and this is where most of your elevation gain is going to come on the day during those 4.5 miles. So a lot of people will walk up that access road or that hill up to South Mountain, but most of the time, runners are still enjoying that runnable road part as we go there. So the second part of that is on the AT for 11 miles. And when runners are on the AT, it is technical, but it is runnable. It's made a little bit more challenging by the leaves that have just fallen on the ground, covering up some of those rocks and sticks and other things that are underneath of them. At mile 15, runners go down Weaverton Cliffs and then they hit the road section. That's where a lot of people have their family, friends, crew to change shoes at, right around mile 15. What some people may not know, though, is that there's about another half a mile of trail after that little section before runners hit the C&O Canal towpath. So runners, the first section is 15.5 miles on the Appalachian Trail. And I always relate that to like the swim section of the triathlon. And then coming up next would be the run section of the triathlon, which in our case would be 26.3 miles on the C&O Canal towpath. A lot of people call that nature's treadmill because it is just the same repetitive foot strike after foot strike. And, you're seeing the same trees. It seems like you're seeing the same visions the entire way until you get to mile 41.8. And then you are on the last section of, this made up triathlon, the run part. I guess I messed up a little bit ago, right? Because triathlon, they bike and then run. So, but that's okay. So you're here, you're at mile 41.8 and you are now on the paved country roads until you get to Williamsport, Maryland at Springfield Middle School. So that last 8.4 mile section is roads, a little bit of hills there, but nothing that is insurmountable, and your legs should be feeling pretty good back on the concrete for that last section to get you to 50.2 miles.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. So for our listeners, the three of us come together with a very vast range of experience related to JFK. Last year was my first JFK 50 experience. I really didn't know what to expect going into it, being pretty new to ultra running, but I ended up having a pretty good day. I ended up finishing in 8 hours and 15 minutes, which put me solidly in the top 150. And I'm hoping that this year I'll improve a little bit and maybe crack that elusive top 100 for the men. How about you, Katie? What's your experience been?
I have 3 finishes. My first year, I ran with Adam, and our friend Robert Kelly, and Adam was hurt that year. So we ran an 11:39, and then the following year I ran a 10:10. So my first time was my slowest time with 11:39, and my second year was my fastest. Last year I ran a 10:15. So it was really comparable to my second year. Out of those, the two 10-hour finishes were gave me top 100 female. And let's see, 2 years ago, I was 76th female, and last year I was 94th female. So actually, with only a 5 minute difference, it was getting really close to not making that top 100, which is completely out of my control. But I do think from looking at the finish times, I think it was 20 minutes faster to get into the top 100 female last year. So that just speaks to the other females out there. The field is getting stronger. So that's exciting. So this year I'm going for my fourth finish. That's the ultimate goal, is to finish, but I would love to get even closer to 10 hours, maybe even break that 10-hour barrier. That's like just right there, kind of like a carrot dangling. Let's see if I can do that.
Awesome. How about
Adam,
you,
what
Adam?
about you?
I have I have 5 JFK finishes ranging from 35 all the way up to 11:39. So I've run up there at the front, and I've run also in the back. Pretty good experiences there. My first year was 2020. I ran 6:55, was 21st place. The next year I ran 6:38, and I was also 21st place that year. So back to back 21st places. And then my third year was the year I ran with Katie and Robert, 11:39, and then I was able to bounce back and run 6:51 and then 6:35. So I think if you look at the pattern, it means I'm going to run 11:39 again this year. So two really fast years and then a slow year. So the goal for the 6th year is to go under 6 hours and 30 minutes. We'll see if that happens or not, but that's the far-fetched goal for me to place in my 6th JFK. So we, all three of us, really, really enjoy different aspects of JFK 50 miles. So we wanted to take just a minute and just explain what we love about this race so much, what makes it special to us. And for me, it's just the community aspect. It is the camaraderie that the other runners have, and the way that you feel during the race, and everybody is truly in it together to get to that finish line. So between all the volunteers, all the aid station workers, all the runners, it seems like we all have one goal for that day, and that is to get from Boonesboro to Williamsport in under 13 hours and then celebrate. So that is my absolute favorite part about this race, is just that we're kind of all in it together. Chris, so what do you love about the race?
For me, I think it's the lore of the race, right? Where I moved to West Virginia, I had heard about the JFK50, but it was like this far-fetched thing that these crazy runners did, and I couldn't imagine it ever happening. And then when I got to Shepherdstown and realized that the course runs practically through my backyard, I started getting really interested in what it was. And then as I got more involved in the local community, running community, I realized, man, this is like the Super Bowl of the running in this area. And so I think for me, that's what I really, really love about the race, is just being able to be a part of something so big and so special. How about you, Katie?
I used to coach track at Williamsport High School, which is a third of a mile from the finish line. And one day we were on the bus and we were driving to a track meet, and one of the coaches said to me, "Oh, yeah, that's where the JFK 50 mile finishes." And I'm like, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, the 50 mile, we always do an aid station, and the indoor track team helps out at that aid station." And they were telling me about it. And I'm like, "Wait, 50 miles?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "You can't, people don't really do that, right? People don't really sign up for 50 miles." Like, my brain could not comprehend the 50-mile race thing. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, And I said, well, can't be very many people. They said, yeah, a lot of people. So that was the first time I'd ever even heard of it. And then I met Adam, and Adam had this goal of running the JFK50. And when he finally stepped out of his comfort zone, which really wasn't that far of a leap, I was crewing him. So I crewed him for 2 years, and then he ends up his third year, 60th annual JFK, and he's hurt, which is a whole nother podcast for another day. However, I was trying to make this a win for him. And so I started thinking, like, he would joke from time to time about me running, but, I still, although it was within the realm of possibility, I suppose, in my mind at this point, I didn't think that I was anywhere close to doing that. So, but I was like, how can I make this a win? I offered to run with him and said, if we can finish together, would that make you feel good about the race day? And he literally like ignored me. It was silence. I just heard crickets. He was not ready to let go of the idea of racing that year. But ultimately, a couple of days later, he came to me and said, would you really do this with me if you can still get a bib? And about probably 10 minutes later, I had a bib and was scared to death. But I had been training for a marathon, had done a 16-miler. I figured, what do I have to lose? We could go out there and see what I can do. And when I got out there, we, along with our friend Robert, had the best race experience. It was so much fun. I tell everybody that we shook all the hands, we kissed all the babies, we ate all the food at the aid stations. We literally saw so many people from the local community that we know. People were handing us turkey sandwiches out of their pockets. It was just, the only way I could describe it is it was magical. It was amazing the whole day. And then at the end, you've accomplished something that not very many people, like the former Katie, can even comprehend what they're doing. But all these amazing people are out there doing it. So it just holds this special place in my heart. So that's why I love the JFK.
Right. So while we're talking about our past experiences, why don't we share a little bit about our favorite story from the JFK, or maybe our favorite memory? Adam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I just a couple quick ones, and then I'll give my absolute most favorite. It's hard to choose, I've raced 5 times here, so a lot has happened over those 250 miles. Definitely one of my favorite memories is having my crew out there. So Katie crewed for me for 2 years, and then Robert Kelly's wife crewed for us that the third year. And then my physical therapist, John, has crewed for me the last 2 years. So just seeing those people out there for me, cheering me on, handing me what I need, taking care of everything, definitely has to be one of my favorite memories. Another one of my favorite memories is mile 34. There is an aid station, Miracle, at mile 34, and there's always a Santa Claus out there. At least there has been the past 5 years. And I have a personal relationship with Santa Claus. So when I saw him, he was about 150 meters up from the aid station, and he volunteered to run me into the aid station. So I thought it was really cool and really fun to run 150 meters or so with Santa Claus during the JFK50. And then one of my other favorite memories was standing at the start line in 2021, standing next to Adam Peterman and some of the other guys that would go on to win the race. Adam set the course record at the time. But the one cool thing about JFK50 is you share the start line with the elites and the everyday people. So you never know who you're standing next to, who you're talking to. It's a really cool experience just to be out there with all those people, and just people that have run the race 26 straight years, people that have done 30 JFKs, people that it's their very first time, first race. So I just love hearing all those stories and memories. But my absolute most favorite story from running the race would be in 2021. I was leading a group of guys and girls down Weaverton Cliffs. And if you go back and watch the video of us, it's pretty cool. It's just me running down the cliffs, and there's about 15 people behind me just following me down. And, about a mile or two before that, I tried to get somebody to take the lead, and everybody said I was doing such a great job. Nobody would volunteer to get in front of me. So I just had to stay up front and lead the charge and hope that nobody saw me fall down. But, we made it down to the end of Weaverton safely. And, I think all those guys just having them follow me and be behind me and cheer, we're working together and doing it all together. It just was a really cool experience. So how about you, Katie? What was your favorite memory of JFK 50 mile?
Well, like you said, it's really hard to choose. I would say there's a few things that really stick out though whenever I'm trying to think back on my 3 finishes. And one of the things was that second year that I ran, it was different. It was very different because the year before I had been with Adam and Robert the whole entire time. So I had these 2 people who were just sidekicks. I mean, I was probably the sidekick, but it was hard to tell at times. We were a team, so we were just working the whole thing together. But this time I was out on my own. I didn't have crew. I didn't have anybody that I was running along with. It was just me and the course. And while you meet people along the way, I still was just going it alone, not running like right next to anybody. And when I came in, I was like so proud because I think I exceeded the expectations that both Adam and I had for myself. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, Adam's going to be so excited to see me so early. We didn't think I'd be here this soon. And then when I come in, the announcers were like talking about me and then they're like, oh, here she is. She's finishing, Katie Lowe. And it was just this really special moment for me because I got that gold medal that I really didn't have an expectation to get that year. And just so our listeners know, when you do finish in the top 100, we've mentioned it a couple times here, top 100 male and top 100 female finishers get a gold medal, and then the rest of the field earns their silver medal with the JFK profile on it. And it's a really, really great medal. So that was one thing that really stuck out for me. Another thing from that year that I was running by myself, it was really getting hard for me around mile 23, 24, not quite halfway, where I know Antietam aid station's coming up at the 27-mile mark. So I'm trying to get there, and it was just getting to the point where I needed to walk, maybe have a little reset. And another runner came up beside me and he's like, let's keep going. We're only about a mile and a half away from the aid station. So I was like, okay, I can't walk now. He's started asking me like whether I'd run this race before, and he was telling me how many times he'd run. He was from New York or something like that. And then he said, I just can't believe how many people have come back to this race so many times. I was just running and talking with a couple girls, and they were twins, and one of them, this is her 9th time, and the other one was running like her 6th time or something. I'm like, wait a second. Were they dark hair? I described them like those are my friends. And it was just crazy that he had just been with my friends and my teammates, Kara and Kelsey, running with them. And now we're talking about the same people. And then he said, as we're like running along, he said, yeah, and I've been seeing this little logo all over the place. This little, looks like a little like running guy or something. And I'm like, wait, like this? And I had a little patch on my vest, on my hydration vest, and it was our Tulo logo. And he's like, yeah, that's it. Well, I've seen that everywhere. What is it? And so I went into our running company was really fairly new at that point, and we didn't have much merchandise out there. Our logo really wasn't on a lot of things, but it had been my friend Farah's idea to put these stickers or patches on our vests for our JFK team. And it was just funny that he had picked that out as seeing that and mentioned it to me. He hadn't even seen mine on my vest until I pointed it out to him. So that was pretty cool, a pretty cool moment. But then I never saw him again after we got to Antietam. But that was just, it really helped me also take my mind off of where I was struggling. So that's like one of the magical things that happens at JFK is when you need somebody there or some kind of motivation, often you can find it. And I'd say the last thing that really sticks out to me, it was actually from one of the first year that Adam ran when I was crew. I'm at the finish line and I'm waiting for Adam to finish. And he finishes, and a few minutes later, lo and behold, here comes David Goggins. My husband had beat David Goggins at the JFK 50 mile. And it was just really cool to see somebody, one of those bigger names, and somebody I actually recognized, because I don't always recognize the higher profile names, but that one I did. So I got to see him finish the JFK 50 mile. And then even years later, as recent as a couple years ago, I'm a high school teacher, and a student every once in a while will mention something about David Goggins or quote something about carrying boots or something. And I'll say, "Oh yeah, I know who David Goggins is. My husband beat him at the JFK 50." And it gets me so many cool points with the high school kids. They're like, "No way." And then this one boy would not, almost every day he'd ask me a question about David Goggins. I'm like, "Listen, I'm not an expert or anything, but I'm telling you, my husband beat him at JFK 50." So that was a really memorable moment for me. And I wasn't even the one who ran it that year. So
As
That
long
is
as you,
absolutely amazing.
as
And I think if David Goggins is out there and he wants to get a shot back at Adam to reclaim his title, maybe he should try to show up for the 2026
I mean, he's
JFK
also
50.
welcome to come and defend himself on the podcast if he'd like.
Oh, there's a great idea.
I'm so
Adam, do you
Maybe
thankful.
have
get his
anything
thoughts
about?
on how that race went.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that you guys are leaving out the part that David Goggins ran like a 200-mile race the week before JFK 50.
I was purposely not talking about that.
We'll let him share that when he comes on the podcast.
Okay, perfect.
But there is a video out there on YouTube, Adam. You'll have to put it in the show comments or the notes
Yeah.
below so people can see that YouTube video that you make an appearance in.
And I'm glad you guys are also leaving out the fact that he went back out on the course and ran 12 miles after the race, and there was no way I was walking like to the car after 50 miles. So
There might
I
also be
appreciate
video
you
of you
guys.
walking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
I
he
have
drop
that
his
on
boat?
video.
Did he have to go get it?
Hey, we carried his boat on the towpath 2 summers ago, remember?
I do remember that. Well, we'll have
The
to bring that
story,
story up
Yeah.
later.
yeah, the story actually is he had a buddy running and he was obviously well behind where David was. So he did go back out onto the course to help his buddy make it in for his own finish.
Yeah. So
Fantastic. Well, I'm not sure I can follow that up very well, but I do have a couple of memories I'll share from my first finish. I think the first I want to share is just, and this is for any of our listeners who are, this will be their first JFK, just the sense of accomplishment you get when you finally turn off the main road and you're headed into the school and you can finally see the arch. People are lined up on both sides. They're cheering everybody in, and you realize you have finally made it. Like, just the sense of pride and accomplishment I had as I was coming down through there. Like, I was soaking that up. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about how I feed off crowd energy before anyway, but definitely that made that last quarter mile just pretty sweet for me. The second thing I wanted to share is just the memory and of a sense of appreciation I had for my crew for the race. My wife Megan has always been super supportive of my races, but her idea of support was let me go run. And on race day, she might show up at the 5K and hang out and, be there when I finish and say good job and, let's go get a drink or something. But for JFK, I needed her to be my crew and to be down at the bottom of Weaverton, to help me with my shoe change, to help me with refilling my bottles real quick. And I know that was probably a little bit of an anxious moment for her because that's just not her thing. But she was a true champion. She enlisted the help of her good friend Christy, and they met me there. They were so excited. They got me in and out of that, aid station changing area, and I was on my way. And then they just, leapfrogged up ahead of me on the course to kind of cheer me along as we went. Along those lines, two of my good friends, Heidi and Carrie from work, they were out of town, or at least that's what I thought. They were out of town for the weekend. And lo and behold, when I come rolling into Shepherdstown, there they are on the side of the course with Megan, cheering me on and just excited to help leapfrog ahead and get me to the finish line. They were actually in North Carolina in the morning, and they drove 5 hours Saturday morning to be there and got there just in time for me to come through Shepherdstown. So I just really appreciated how much support I got from my friends on that, and it really made a huge difference, in how the day went.
And Heidi's running this year, right?
She is. This will be her first year. I'm going to take a little bit of credit in that, I will say coerced her into to doing it, but I think really all I did was, help give her the confidence that, she could absolutely do it, and I'm really excited. She's going to have a fantastic day.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I can't wait to see how she does.
I think you mean inspired, Chris. You inspired her to
Yes.
run. So
Well, yeah, maybe.
so to feed off of Chris's last story about how important and how memorable his crew was, I myself have run the race 5 times, but I've never crewed for anyone. Chris, you've never crewed for anybody at JFK, is that correct?
I have not.
Right. So Katie is the only one of us on the podcast with some crewing experience. So Katie, do you have any tips for people who are listening that may be on the crew team, or maybe for a runner that could tell their crew to give them some tips maybe?
Oh, for sure. First of all, I loved being Adam's crew. It was so much fun. And it's also a way that I felt important on the day when he was doing such a, a big, amazing thing. I had a job, and me doing my job better was going to let him do his job better. It was going to enable him to be more comfortable and more successful. And I think like most people who go out there to crew, took it seriously and feel like a little bit of nerves associated with it too, because it is an important job. But if you're prepared, the preparation is like the biggest thing you can do to really make it a smooth, easy crewing job. Adam did this thing the first year, which blew my mind, and I was just horrified. He took these drawstring bags that he had from a different race or wherever he had gotten these promotional drawstring bags, and took a magic marker and wrote right on the bag the cruise stop that I was supposed to have this bag for. So the first one said Antietam, 27.3 miles. So I knew that when I went and parked at Antietam and went to walk out to the canal, to the towpath, that was the bag I had to take. So he did the same thing for Taylor's Landing, and that was it, right? So Snyder's Landing, maybe I might have stopped there. I can't remember. That's been 5 years ago now. However, he wrote right on the bag, and I couldn't believe the permanency of this. I was like, what if you want that bag for something else someday? He's like, no, now these are my JFK bags. And it was as simple as that. But on race day, it made my job so easy. He knew like he might need this, that, or whatever, and it was in the bag. So I grabbed the bag. When I saw him at the that spot on the towpath, I set up a chair before he got there. Set up a chair, had a blanket or a tarp sitting out that had his shoe change there, maybe had an extra pair of gloves or whatever it is that he thought he might need at that point. It was all laid out. So when he got there, he could actually just sit down, change his shoes. I could put whatever else in his hand that he needed and take stuff away from him. And then he would say, at the next stop, I want potato chips along with my bag, or I need my bottle filled with Tailwind, whatever it was. And then I'd have that plus the next bag at the next cruise stop. So we really had it down to almost a science. And by the second year, we were really good at that. But with that job, you need to have some certain understandings. When your runner comes in, especially if they're going for a time, don't expect them to take long stops. Actually, be encouraging of them to continue on as quickly as they can. If your runner isn't too concerned about their time, that they don't have to rush, but they also don't want to waste a lot of time, because the sooner they're finished, the the sooner you guys can celebrate at the finish line. So don't expect long stories or full recaps. You want to keep the stops kind of efficient. Also, when they sit down for too long, they can get stiff. Beware the chair is a popular saying in the ultra community. So that's just something you want to kind of avoid, and just be your runner's biggest cheerleader, their biggest fan. Hype them up, give them positive vibes the whole way. At some point, the race is going to get hard. It's 50 miles. It gets hard for everyone. So when they're getting to, if your runner gets to the point where, like, I don't know if I can continue, or this hurts or that hurts, just give them the positive vibes, remind them why they're doing it, remind them how proud they're going to feel with that medal around their neck, how many Strava kudos they're going to get, how many Medal Monday pictures they can take, all the things, whatever it is that drives your runner. You be out there, and then at the finish line, be the first one to give them a hug, high five, fist bump, whatever it is. Adam, we pretty much had that crewing thing down to a science, don't you think?
Yeah, we had the one year, I know we had about a 30 to 45-second stop that included a shoe change, to where the chair was set up for me, the shoes were out for me, and I just changed shoes, grabbed my new bottle of Tailwind, swigged, or is that the right word? Took a drink of pickle juice real quick, and then just I took off. So, somebody who's going for a fast time, definitely, like Katie said, make sure everything is just laid out for them. If you know they're going to do a shoe change, put those shoes on the ground and, get them out of the bag for the runner already. Be prepared for them. I always say it's a good idea to point the shoes in the direction that they're going to be running. That way it's a good mental mindset of, okay, these shoes are going that way with or without me, right? Like, we got to get the shoes on the feet because they're going that way. So that's a good one. And then I was just going to add for the runners, like, I know Katie makes fun of me a little bit because I wrote the stop on the bag, but I was just trying to make it as easy as possible for her, and to take any thought about what I needed or what I would want at that aid station or that crew station. And then the last thing I have is for the runners. I know, like, especially when you get to mile 38 and it's been a long day and you're a little grumpy because you're hungry, you're tired, but I guarantee your crew is as well. So they've also had a long day, and they're driving around from point to point, dealing with traffic, dealing with strangers, and other people that have been in their way the whole day, and they're irritated too. So runners, just try to be as nice as possible to your crew, especially if you are married. You don't want to start any fights at mile 38 and you're just running, and then at that point you might not want to make it to the finish line because you cussed at your wife or something. You might keep running all the way to Cumberland. Go ahead, Katie. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I will say probably both years that I crewed for you, Adam, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you remember this. The day after, I'd be like, I'm so tired. My feet hurt. And Adam's like, I'm the one who ran 50 miles. And I swear to you, I would wake up the next day and feel like I had done it too. It just is such a big job, and you're up early, you are on your feet. Sometimes it's cold a lot in November, so you're, spending your time trying to stay warm and get from place to place, just the stress of it. I mean, if I cared about the job that I did, so it stressed me out a little bit. I needed to make sure I was at each spot, giving him everything he needed. So the next day, I truly felt like I had also run 50 miles. So don't underestimate how your crew is going to feel the next day as well. So, but with that said, there is another really magical time of the JFK50, and that comes in the final hour. I know, Adam, that you love the golden hour, and I hear you talk about it to people a lot. So is there anything you want to tell the listeners about the golden hour?
Sure. The golden hour is from 6 to 7 p.m. So it's that 12-hour to 13-hour mark in the race where people are coming in
6:30.
6:30 to 7:30. Oh yeah, okay, because the race
Yeah.
starts at 6:30. I will do math. All right, perfect. So 6:30 to 7:30, and those runners are coming in, and they have been out there, half of a day. So And now they've coming in. They've been running in the dark for a little while, so they are tired. They are doing everything they can to get to the finish line. The finish line spectator area is packed. You know, a lot of people are finished, okay, but they're coming out of the middle school and they're coming out to watch these runners come in. So it is a little bit kind of like Western states where they have, you know, they're finishing last hour 29 to 30 hours, and there are just hundreds of people out there cheering them on. If you go back and look at the finisher videos on YouTube, there are more people out there for the 12th and 13th hour than there are for the winners as they come across, because of the amount of crew that are at the finish line, the amount of runners who are finished and hanging out and cheering for people. It really is a magical time to celebrate those people who have put in work all day long and, you know, are coming across that finish line to get their medal and celebrate. So that is definitely one of my favorite aspects of the JFK 50 mile and that day. And again, the golden hour is from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. I'm a fast learner. I got this.
All right. Now, we did post on social media and reached out to some people and said, if you have any questions, post them for us. So we took in a few questions from some people, and I think it's a good time to go through those, don't you guys?
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
let's do it.
Okay. The first question I have here was from Heidi, and she said the JFK 50, an all day silent retreat, no headphones, no music, no podcasts, just me and my thoughts for 10 hours. How do you stay entertained or at least sane while you're out there? Adam, what do you think? I know this is
Yeah.
something that's in your wheelhouse.
Well, for me, I normally don't run with music or any sort of listening device. So for me, it is just about figuring out what has worked during training. The good thing about JFK is when you're on the trail or you're on the towpath or even the road, if you are struggling and you catch up to somebody or they catch up to you, a quick conversation can get you right back into the race. So, you know, that's very helpful. Don't be scared to make new friends out on the course. People, if they've been by themselves for an hour, we want to talk to other people, right? So just say hi, ask them how they're doing, and it could turn into a lifelong friend. You really never know. For me, I also, if I get really, really bored, I start counting steps and I just count to 100 over and over and over again. I'm pretty simple. I can entertain myself for a while with that, and then, you know, if needed, I cue up a song or figure something out. But I'm pretty good at entertaining myself just because I'm used to it without listening to music or podcasts on a daily basis. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I take a very similar approach. One of the things that really helped get me through was as we were running along, you know, you end up passing or getting passed by the same folks a lot of times once you settle into your pace. And so striking up some conversation, talking about anything other than how you're feeling, right? And just trying to distract and help pass those miles along. The other thing that I found last year was I got this earworm of a song in my head, and that just went on repeat. And it was just enough to distract me. And it was not the whole song. It might have only been like two or three lines of the song, but it was just over and over and over. But that was enough to distract me from, you know, whatever pain I was feeling in my hip or thinking about, you know, oh my gosh, I still have, you know, 22 miles to go, those kinds of things. It really helped get me through.
Yeah, I agree with that. The song thing and everything that we both said about meeting other people or talking to other people. I'm kind of a suffer in silence person, so I don't always talk when I'm feeling the pain. But one thing I've noticed that whenever I'm running and I listen to music almost every single time I run. So this is a stretch for me, but it wasn't that bad. I never really missed it. I mean, I might have a better time with it, but I think I just tend to think of how proud I am gonna be whenever I cross that line.
One other thing I wanted to add is, you know, one thing that's really nice on the canal and when you get on the road is the aid stations are only 3.5 to 4 miles away. So just actually just breaking the race up into those 3 and 4 mile chunks, that also helps a lot to not think about just how expansive 50 miles is, over the course of the day.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, there are no personal listening devices allowed. You are allowed to have your cell phone while you're running, and it's even encouraged in case there's some kind of emergency, somebody falls on the AT. If you witness that, you could call somebody and tell them about what mile of the race you're in. That would be really helpful. So it is helpful to have your cell phone, but you're not allowed to wear any personal listening devices because you're on the trail, which a lot of it's single track. You're also, if you were plugged in to the music, you're going to miss a lot of the great things that are out there. All the people, all the spectators, the aid stations are amazing, and the support that is out there, you really don't want to miss that. So it is a hard adjustment, but I think the anticipation is worse than in practice. So, do you guys have anything else to add about that? Okay, well, then the next question comes from Samir, and he says, at what point in the race does it get mentally hard? And I can tell you, I think mine comes the earliest out of the three of us. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this point. Usually they talk about later in the race, but my hard spot always comes around 23 miles. It's somewhere in there where there's no aid stations. I'm between aid stations. It's a lonely part of the towpath. I'm not yet halfway. For me, that's a really mental thing for me that I'm not halfway yet. And as soon as you get halfway, you're almost to Antietam. And Antietam is just this like place where you feel like a celebrity. It's so loud with the crowd. You're in almost a tunnel of spectators and a big aid station, and you're over halfway. But leading right up to that, a few miles out, and I mentioned that earlier that I was having a hard spot, a tough time around that spot, is it just I'm getting tired because I'm over 20 miles into a run, but I'm not halfway, and I'm alone. And, I haven't hit that huge aid station yet to kind of give me that second wind. So I mean, everybody's going to have their struggles that day. So I think the lesson is that you can also come out of it just as fast as you come into it. But what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, so for me, my hardest part mentally is miles 38 through 41. So that is Taylor's Landing and the very last part of the towpath. So you've done 23 miles on the towpath, which if you run a marathon before, usually 23 to 26 are pretty hard of a marathon, right? You're tired, you're exhausted, and this part, you've already been on the towpath for 23 miles. You've been seeing the same thing, same foot strikes over and over and over again. You go through Taylor's, and then now it's just quiet, and there's nothing else until you get off of the towpath. And it's just that part of the towpath just feels like it goes on and on forever to me. And I actually went out there and ran there today just for the purpose of going out and doing my most mentally hard part on the course again. And when I went out there and ran it, I said, yep, this is why this part is so mentally hard. It's just that same feeling of I'm never going to get to the road. And I just started. Like I was at mile 0 of my run today, and those 3.3 miles seemed like they felt they would take forever just to get to the road. So it's just that's a mental hard section for me. But I know once I get to that road, I'll pick right back up and be excited to conquer that first hill and then keep going from there. But yeah, so 38 to 41 for me.
And Adam, I think one thing that's really tough about that section too is that you need to get to Dam 4, right? And when you are on the trail this time of year, you can see Dam 4 for over a mile
I
away. And you're like, I can see it, I'm there. And then it's just minute after minute after minute until you finally reach it. So
I
I can definitely see how that would be hard.
I did notice that today when I went out there, so I can definitely tell you that that is true. You can see Dam 4 from a mile away. And thing too is when you get to mile 38, you're still 12 miles away from the finish line. So you've already reached that point where you go, okay, half marathon left to go. and now you're 12 miles away, and that's there's no milestone there. You're not in single digits yet, and you've already, so you're kind of in no man's land, and it's just a painful stretch. Last year, I know it was made a little bit easier for me because I saw a guy up about a half a mile in front of me, and I was able just to like work up and try to catch up to him. So I made it like a little race there. But so that would be if I could like plant someone at mile 38, like another runner to run with at mile 38, that would be great. So if anybody's ahead of me and they want to wait for me when we get there, I would appreciate that because there are no pacers at the JFK 50. But if another runner wants to beat me there, then I would gladly take their help if they wanted to wait for me. How about you, Chris? What's your hardest part of the course mentally?
So for me mentally, the hardest part is right about the 50K mark, which puts you right about Shepherdstown Bridge. I mentioned earlier that I live here in Shepherdstown and I run that section of the course, multiple times a week, right? So it's not that I'm not familiar with it or anything like that. It's that at 50K, you're starting to feel some pain, right? And you realize you still have 20 miles to go. And when I get to that bridge, it's like I can run up the switchbacks and be in my house in 15 minutes. And I definitely thought about that last year. Thank goodness, my crew was there to just cheer me on and give me that little boost of energy and help get me through and on my way to Snyder's Landing. But just that knowing you can be home in less than 10 to 15 minutes, it's real tempting when you're starting to enter the pain cave.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess the only good thing to look for, that's when you have to figure out like, why am I doing this, right? And I think Katie's going to talk about that here in a little bit probably, but like, yeah, why not just go home, right? Well, part of it is because it's not the JFK 31 miler to Chris's house, but
That's
you,
right.
you know, but yeah, I mean, you got to figure out why you're doing it and just remember that. And if you just take one step further on the towpath, then you can't turn around and go back, right? You got to keep going forward. So just think about that when you get there this year. You just got to go to that next aid station and get there. So yeah, I don't want to see
I
you.
definitely
Well,
Go ahead,
I was gonna
Chris.
say I definitely checked Strava. There's no segment for that. I
Yeah,
mean, if there was, I might have done it, but
perfect.
I'm going to go off script just for a minute, but is there a way, since we're talking about when it gets mentally hard, is there any certain phrase you tell yourself, or how do you get out of that? How do you think mentally you do keep going? Because you guys brought up a good point, like why am I doing this? I mean, we all know at the end of the day we want to accomplish something, but do you have any mental inner dialogue, I guess?
Yeah, for me, it goes back to like that, I'm running JFK 50, but and I know you guys are too, but I'm racing JFK 50. I'm racing other people. Like I truly do. I want to run a great time, but I want to be in the top 25. So, like I said last year, when I got to this mentally hard part and I saw that guy up about a half mile in front of me, I made it my new goal to catch that guy. So that really helped me to see him. And then, when I'm out there too, I don't want to get caught. So I know like, hey, if I stop and slow down, I've thought about it multiple times when I'm on the towpath, like, oh, I should probably take a pee break. That's just like my body saying, hey, we need to stop for a second, right? But so just, I don't want to get caught and I want to catch someone else. That's usually what I do when it gets mentally hard. I don't really have like a catchphrase to go to, but I do count to 100, and sometimes I'll say, all right, well, if I walk, I can walk, but I count to 100. And once I get to 100, I run again. It doesn't matter. But, that was my walk break. And then we're right back at it, just kind of like a mental reset almost. How about you, Chris? What Taylor Swift lyric do you say over and over in your head to keep going?
there definitely is probably some Taylor Swift lyrics in my head. That's all I hear in my house most of the time, but that's okay. But for me, it really is just about not quitting. I have one DNF in my career, and by far, I consider that my worst racing experience ever. Now, that's just me personally. I'm not a professional athlete where I understand there are some economics involved of like when things aren't going well. Like for them, DNFing makes, financial sense. But for me, I would rather, you know, squeak in under that 13-hour mark, or I would rather time out and someone pulled me off the course than knowing I gave up and quit, no matter how tough it is. I think about people who probably have things a little bit worse or a lot worse than I do. And if they can keep moving and keep doing the things they're doing to survive every day, I can finish a race even though it's a little bit hard. So that's just a little bit about me, like personally though, and like my motivation, my drive. But how about you, Katie?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's very personal, right? Because we're out there and we signed up for a reason, and we have these. Our everybody has their own whys why they're doing it. I'm also somebody. I don't think I've ever DNF'd a race because I just have that drive that at the end of the day, if my time isn't what it's like expected to be, or and whose expectations are we even talking about? My own. No one else even really cares whether I run 10 hours or 12 and a half hours. I tell some people all the time, like at the end of the day, if I'm back at school teaching and my students say, "How far did you run?" and I say 50 miles, and they ask how fast it was, I could say 6 hours. I could say 12 hours. They'd just be like, whoa. There's like, no, most people can't comprehend this big feat. It's just not something that people do very often, right? Like the general population. So, but for me, when it gets tough out there, I try to focus on 1 mile at a time. Just get to the next mile, run the mile you're in. I also think in my head a lot about the people who are going to be proud of me, how I'm going to be proud of myself. That pride factor is a real big why for me. So it does keep me going forward. And sometimes last year I had some really painful parts. I had some things pop up and it was painful, but I literally said to myself, relentless forward motion. Just keep moving forward. Every step I take is one more step closer to that finish line. And I'm going to get there. And sometimes mid race, I'm like, I don't care when I finish. It does not. I wanted to finish in 10 hours. I don't care if it's 12 hours and 59 minutes from now, but I am going to do my best to get there in that amount of time.
One thing I wanted to add is, as part of my Instagram handle for the Ale Trail Runner is hashtag do hard things. It's not do hard things and give up, or skip the hard things, right? Like that actually is like part of, my why for when I'm running is just to push
Yeah.
myself to do more. But I think it's really important for our listeners to know that like everyone experiences the pain cave. I was listening to a podcast last year right before JFK50, and it was Courtney Dauwalter, who, those of you who know anything about ultra running know she is the GOAT, right? One of, if not the best ultra runner of all time. And she embraces it. She knows she's going to have that pain cave moment. She looks forward to it. She knows she's going to get through it. And then she's that much more energized and excited when she comes out the other side. So if Courtney Dauwalter can know she's going to have the pain cave, I've got to expect I'm going to have it, and it's okay. I'm going to survive.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that because when you were talking, I couldn't help but think that sounds like Adam. How many times I've heard Adam say, I can't wait till it gets hard. I can't wait till this race challenges me. He sometimes will say he's bored during a marathon because it's not hard until a certain mile, which is crazy to me. Sometimes he and I could not be more different. He just said his motivation is to race people and beat people. And I don't care who I beat. I honestly don't. If me and somebody I'd run with half the race were coming into the finish line, I'm not going to try to out sprint them. I'm just going to try to run my own race as strong as I can. And I don't want to hurt myself doing it. But with that said, I'm sorry we got off on a tangent a little bit there, but we'll get back to these questions. We have another question from Samir. He said, how do you approach the road section? Do you intentionally run slower to reserve energy on the towpath and trail, or do you just put it all out there and hang on to whatever is left on the in the tank?
I'll
Chris, what
jump
do
in
you
and go
think?
first. I'll jump in and go first. Yeah, it's for me, the road section was just that needed boost of energy because, as Adam mentioned, you just completed a full marathon on the canal, and now it's something different. You've entered that third phase, you're in the home stretch, even though it's still 8.2 miles. Now you have mile markers that are counting down. They're going to get you to the finish. And as Katie said, at that point, it becomes run 1 mile at a time. And if that means you walk the hill sections, that's okay. You're still moving forward. You're getting to the finish, and that's how I approach it. Is just 1 mile at a time. Chug through it. Get to those aid stations. Take in that last little bit of fuel, and get yourself to that arch at the end by the school. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think if you look at, I was looking at results today and I kind of chuckled a little bit. You know, you have to run infinitely slower on the trail and the towpath. I mean, it's not a 41.8 mile race, right? It's a 50 mile race. So if you left everything out there on the trail and then the towpath, there you would DNF at mile 42, right? So you have to leave something for those last 8.4 miles on the road. And I know Chris and I talked about this the other day. His approach was to walk all the uphills and then run the flats and run the downhills. And that was what Katie, I, and Robert did the year we ran together. So it's a very good way to approach the road if you are not able to run that whole section, which a lot of people are not, just because we've already got 42 miles on our legs, right? So you're probably going to need to walk. You might as well walk the hills and then run when it's downhill and gravity's helping you. So, yeah, I think it's very smart to hold back a little bit early. It's a much different feeling to finish on the road feeling strong than it is to get to the road and be absolutely dead and doing the death march into Williamsport. I know Katie could talk about her legs feeling good the first year we ran if she wants to, just kind of elaborate on that a little bit. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, the first year, because we had been so methodical, our approach to my first JFK as a team, we took the AT section fairly easy. Survive the AT is a phrase I've heard Adam tell people repeatedly over the years. Just survive the AT. So that was our goal. I had virtually no trail experience at that point in time, so I had no idea how that was going to go. Then when we got to the canal, to the towpath, we literally put down a plan. We executed. We did a run walk the entire canal, even though we probably didn't need to as soon as our feet hit the towpath. But we did that and it was methodical the whole way. I will also throw in there that that year we had an hour of non-moving time according to Strava. So we definitely took our breaks, and like I said earlier, we talked to everybody along the way and ate all the food and stopped at the cruise stops, and when one person used the bathroom, we all stood there like we waited. So but when I got to the road, my legs felt amazing. Having that change of
Surface.
footing underneath me. Yeah, it was just not no movement underneath it. That hard pavement felt amazing. I probably could have run the whole way in. It might have been the year that I could have gotten my fastest split on the road section because it just felt so good. My legs felt fresh. It was crazy. Now the last 2 years, I ran a lot faster time, but I did not have that same effect. So that just maybe goes to show that if you do put it all out there in the first two sections, like Adam talked about, you might not have as much left and you might pay for it on the road. I know some years, well, all the time, let's be honest, those counting down mile markers seem like when's that next one going to come? Surely it has to be coming soon. But the only thing I would add to what we've said already is that if you're getting to a point where even running the flats is tough, or you think this is a really long hill, but I don't want to walk the whole thing, it's very easy and a pretty good strategy for me at least to pick up telephone pole or a tree or something along the side of the road and say, okay, I am gonna try to run a little bit here, but I'm gonna get to that telephone pole and then I'm gonna walk one. And then I'm going to run a couple more. And then if you break it up like that, you actually can really chip away at some of those miles that are feeling so tough. But at the same time, you're getting closer and closer to that finish line. So, there's also that bit of motivation there. So, if I'm looking at my list, the next thing Samir wanted to know about was fueling strategy. He thought it'd be interesting to kind of hear from the three of us because there is a big variety here. Adam's racing and trying to finish sub 7 in the 630, sub 630 this year, hopefully. He's racing JFK50, where I'm in more towards, I mean, I wouldn't say in the back, but I've been over 10 hours, ran the 11:39. I have a much different fueling strategy than Adam would. So, Adam, do you want to start?
Sure. So my fueling strategy is based on gels and tailwind. I like to use just tailwind in my handheld, and then this year I'm going to use the cis gels, some of the betas that have the 40 grams of carbs, and then the other ones that have the nootropics and the caffeine mixed in there, and then just some of the isotonic ones as well. Unless I'm having a bad day or I have a random craving before I get to an aid station and I think I need to stop and grab like an Oreo cookie or something like that, I won't have any solid food during the race. I live just on tailwind and the gels. I think when Katie crewed for me a couple of times, I had plain potato chips, but that was it. Other than that, it was just the gels and the tailwind. I know when we ran the 11:39 year, I definitely had solid food. So that would be what I would add before I turn it over to Chris, is that if you're going to be out there, for 11, 12, 13 hours you're probably going to need some solid food. All right, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So my strategy, I think about it in three phases. There's nutrition and electrolytes because it's not for me. I'm a very heavy, salty sweater. So it's not enough for me to, when I think about hydration, to just think about water. I've got to think about how I'm going to replace those electrolytes as well. So just like Adam, I'm very conscious of making sure I get a lot of tailwind, which is a very, high electrolyte, high carbohydrate hydration mix. That's a big part of my strategy. I'm going to have 2 bottles in my vest when I start the race. I'm going to have 2 new bottles, when I get to Weaverton. And then I'm going to use aid stations to replace those and keep those full all the way through the race. I'm going to have, probably 10 gels with me along the way because I'm going to replace those carbohydrates as best I can as I'm going through. I typically try to take a gel every 5 miles. I know I'm going to eventually get to the point where I don't want to think about gels during the race, and I'll have to, rely on aid stations a little bit there. The other really important part of that electrolyte mix for me is to have pickle juice. Pickle shots is something I carry in my vest. They're my break, when I need to break glass in a case of emergency to get rid of that cramp, I'm going to take that pickle shot whenever I need it, but I'm going to have that with me. If there's pickle juice at an aid station, I'm going to take advantage of it. But that's sort of my approach. I'll probably have an Uncrustable or two, as I'm on the AT because it's a little bit easier on maybe the uphill sections to put down some solid food while I'm continuing to move forward. But once I hit the canal, it's probably going to be gels and tailwind and pickle juice. So, how about you, Katie?
Yeah, so both are running fairly quickly. You're not out there as long as I am. Uh, I will say that typically I have a couple gels over the AT just because the aid stations are much fewer and further between. You do have your one at Gathlin, but that's about halfway through the AT section. When I get to the towpath, I will have some gels on me because I do believe this year I'm going to make sure to take the gels in between aid stations. However, in the last couple years, I had a couple gels on the AT. By the time I hit the towpath, I didn't have another gel. I had a few with me in case of emergency, sort of the break glass thing that you talked about, but I lived off the aid stations. But what I did do is made sure I ate and drank something at every aid station. So at every single aid station, I'd grab some small thing of real food. And I'm somebody who like can during an hourly challenge or an ultra run, I can take gels for so long, but then my stomach will start to growl. It needs real food. So I try to pick up grilled cheese, peanut butter and jelly. I really like salty foods. I'm not much of the sweet lover. Like there's an aid station that has Christmas cookies and one that has the red velvet cake. People rave over that. And I'm sure it is great, but I just can't tolerate it during the run. But I think overall the strategy is before I took a couple gels early and then ate real food the whole way. I think the longer you're out there, you really can't get behind. You don't want to let yourself get behind on fueling or hydration or even the electrolytes, really, because it's much harder to catch up than it is to stay where you need to be. So if you get ahead of it some, you might be setting yourself up to have a much better day the whole way. And this year, I'll probably take gels, kind of switch back and forth between gels and real food. So hopefully, neither one gets old to me along the way. I do know sometimes if I took gels for 10 to 12 hours, I would not my system would not be very happy with me by the time I was finished. So, but if I was only running 6 hours, yeah, that sounds reasonable. So, with that said, Becca, we're moving on. Becca reached out and asked us how to get better at trails. Now, Chris, I know you're a trail lover. Do you have any advice for Becca?
Yeah, Becca, you should come out on Tuesday nights over the course of the summer and run with the Ale Trail Running Group. But in all seriousness, I think that the best way to get better on trails is just time on the trail. You need to have that opportunity to let yourself get comfortable with the rocks, get comfortable with the routes. You know, give yourself that opportunity to try different lines, to see what you're seeing, figure out where your eyes need to be, how far ahead. For me, depending on how technical the trail is, I'm either looking straight down at my feet or, I'm able to look off, maybe, 6, 8 paces ahead. For me, it just comes with experience, but I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts on that.
I just think time on feet is big. And one of the biggest things for me being out on the trail, the practice, like you said, being out there on the trail for me not only gives you those technical practice at the technicality of it, watching your feet, preparing for the rocks things, but for me it's like I'm less scared of it because I've been out there. So it just gives me a little bit more confidence. Okay. So do more trail. It might be a little late for that now, but for next year, I think that's a great idea. I know I hadn't gone out on the trail at all before my first two JFKs. For the third time I was going out there, I did a lot more practice and my time. I don't even feel like I tried that extra hard, put that much extra effort into it, but my time did come down a lot on the trail just from having put time in out there. Let's see. I think we have one more question. Ron asked, and Ron claims to not be a runner, but he has finished the JFK50 4 times, I believe. And his mom was actually the 1974 champion of JFK. So, I think his dad even has 11 finishes. So, Ron claims to not be a runner, but I don't know that I agree. With that said, his question is, how the hell do amazing people do this 10, 15, 20, 25 plus times? What's the trick or the mindset? Adam, do you want to start this one off?
Sure, I'll start by saying that if you're running JFK50, you're definitely a runner. So there's no questions about that, right? But as far as coming back year after year after year, part of that has to be, if you're still listening to this podcast right now, you've heard the three of us only say good things about JFK50. So not that we haven't been out there and we haven't struggled, or there hasn't been times where we wanted to run up that bridge and go home and crawl under our blankets and stuff, right? But, you know, or just, you know, we've been in tears during the race because everything hurt and we were feeling bad or whatever, but the case may be. But, you know, we've only talked about the good stuff. And I think that's what people focus on when they cross that finish line. They get their medal, they go into the school and they get cleaned up and they see everybody hobbling around, but they're smiling, they're happy, they get that sense of accomplishment, that sense of self pride. And I think that's what we remember about JFK 50. And that's what people, you know, come back for year after year because we're always chasing that feeling again. You know, it's why when people do a marathon, they go, "Oh man, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll never do that again." And then 3 days later, they sign up for another marathon, right? Because they've already come down a little bit from that high, and but they remember how that feeling was, and they want that feeling again. The other way that people do this is, let's be clear, we're only talking about a select few people that have done 20 plus JFKs, right? So that's a special breed of people. You know, there's a JFK run club, right? A 50-mile plus club, and that's 10 or more finishes is when they start to celebrate the run club there. So you have to do 500 miles, right? Is that what I said?
You said
Five.
50, it's 500-mile
Oh,
run club.
yeah, because 10 times
Everybody who
50,
finishes is in the 50-mile run club.
yeah, 10 times 50 is 500, not 50. So if you finish 10 times, right? I mean, that means you've taken care of yourself. You've dedicated your running or something, you know, to where you can come back year after year after year. So we're talking about a select few of people, select few group of people there where they're, you know, doing something special, coming back year after year for sure.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, as a one-time finisher, I don't know that I have the credibility to really talk about, what brings people
Yeah,
back
but
year
you're
after year
coming
after
back.
year. But I am coming back because of a lot of the things that I talked about earlier. I would though point out like what really amazes me and like I'm in awe of are the people who come out and the JFK 50 is their first race or the only race they do every year. Samir, who asked a couple of questions and who you all have heard us talk about on this podcast many times, his first race ever was the JFK 50 last year. And I can't even fathom how you would jump into running by picking a 50-mile race. Like a lot of people won't even think about doing a 5K, and Samir's like, my first race, I'll just do a 50, whatever. I mean, I can't even fathom that. But I know Adam, you've talked about Mr. Bowman before, and maybe I should turn it back over to you or to Katie because you know the story better than I. But how many finishes does he have? And the JFK 50 is the only race he's ever done.
So
Go ahead.
legend has it that I think he's got 22 finishes now, and JFK 50 is the
I
only
think that's right.
race.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's the only race that he's ever done. So, you know, we've heard the story from. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, for those of you who are struggling with math, maybe like Adam, that's over 1,000 miles of racing in his lifetime, but only in a 50-mile race.
Yeah,
That's insane to me.
yeah.
It's amazing.
So we've heard the story from Mike Spindler, the current race director of JFK, to where, you know, Mr. Bowman showed up on that first race day and they had to teach him how to put his bib on with the pins because he'd never been to a race before, and here he's, you know, lining up for 50 miles. So it's just incredible, you know, like, but that's what JFK does to people, right? You know, you get out there and you may be a little underprepared, but you grind it out with the people next to you, and you know, that goes from people that are finishing in the top 100 to people who are 1,120th place. You know, like we've talked about, everybody's going to struggle at some point. Everybody's going to, you know, figure out why they're doing it, and you know, especially us local folks, it's hard to stay away, right? Like this is a big time local race that you want to be a part of. Go ahead, Katie.
Absolutely. I feel that the things that we said we love about this race is why we keep coming back. I mean, we did cover that earlier. And the local community, if I wasn't running this race and I was seeing all these other people running that I know, actually last year, I think we were looking for volunteers or something for race day, and Adam and I were talking and we could not think of almost anybody because everyone we knew in the community, everyone we could think of was running, volunteering already, or crewing somebody. Like just everybody was involved and if I wasn't running, I would want to be involved as well as far as either crew or volunteering, working, but I'm still at the point where I can run it. I want to run it. I think I can do a little bit better than I have in the past. So there's also that stubborn, crazy part of us that just want to do that little bit better, right? Like we think we can just get a little bit more. And even if we can't, we can still accomplish it at the end of the day. So I can't imagine. I didn't start until just a few years ago, so I can't imagine how you do it 25 times. But at that point, it's just ingrained in you. It's just what you do. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I
uh,
don't think there were any other questions on the list.
No, that was it. So we'll do a little bit of maybe final thoughts. Anything that you didn't get to cover during the podcast here, during the conversation. So, Katie, do you have anything that you want to leave us with? Maybe if you can, you still sign up for the race this year, or when does it open next year? Should people check their emails coming up soon if they're racing? Anything like that that you want to give people tips for?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to tell everyone. The race actually sold out really early this year, you guys. It sold out, I believe, in August, and it just went beyond the expectations of the race management team, and we're thrilled about that. But coming along with that, there had to be a lot of people who missed out on the opportunity to run this 63rd annual JFK 50 mile. So, what I would love everybody to know is that registration for next year's race opens on March 1st. I would encourage anyone that I would talk to sign up early and buy the insurance in case some coverable reason would take you out of being able to race on race day. But you get the early bird rate if you sign up early, and the insurance is actually more economical than waiting for a price increase. So it just makes sense. Sign up early. Don't miss your chance to run with us the following year. We're going to sign up, I'm sure. I speak for me and Adam. Chris, you think next year again, or are we going to see how this year goes?
Oh, I'll absolutely be there next year. It is just, as I said, it's the Super Bowl of the local running environment, right? And I am the FOMO I had the first year that I was here and didn't get to run. There's no chance I'm not gonna sign up and do it again. But if I had one final thought for, any of our listeners as a one-time finisher and, being the closest to, that sense of uncertainty that some of our first-time runners might be having right now is just trust your training. It's going to be fine. I know it is a scary thought going into a 50-mile race that starts in the dark and may end in the dark. You're going to love it. You're going to have a great day and you're going to be so proud of yourself when you cross that finish line, whether it's in 6 hours and 30 minutes or, you know, 12 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds. It's going to be a great day. Just go out there and kill it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good job, Chris. I think that's important. Like, eventually for everyone, it's going to get tough out there, right? And like you said earlier, I would encourage our listeners to embrace that when it gets tough and just look within yourself and learn some life lessons about how you deal with, that when it gets tough and how you respond to that, right? Like just embrace that challenge, be ready for it, know that everyone around you is going through probably something very similar, right? And make a friend out there, be nice to each other, and have a lot of fun. So we appreciate everyone listening to today's podcast. Stick around. We are going to do our after party here in just a couple seconds. But so stick around, don't go nowhere. All right. That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the CNO. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing. All right, everybody, it is time for the after party. So we're going to run down about 6 or 7 quick questions and just give 1 or 2 word answers as we go. Chris, do you have any beer left? And what are you drinking?
I actually don't. I was drinking a old-fashioned bourbon barrel stout from Kentucky Brewing Company, but yeah, that got me through tonight. How
It's
about you?
gone. I'm still drinking this Fire on the Mountain Steelers Bud Light from last episode. I mean, it's not the same beer, but it's the same beer. So, Katie, what do you got over there?
I got some high quality H2O in my tiki truck glass.
There you go. That must have been the Beer Mile Championship glass you got there at the Beer Mile. All right. So
That's
here
right.
here's what we'll do. I'll ask the question. Chris, you answer first. Katie, you answer second, and then I'll answer, and then I'll go to the next question. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
All right. What has been your favorite aid station food along the course?
So I'm gonna say it's a food that I didn't actually experience last year, and I was so disappointed that I missed it. But I'm looking forward this year to the legendary iced sugar cookies that the Frederick Steeplechasers have at their aid station. So this year I am not gonna miss out on that.
They are at mile 19, and if you don't want to eat it, last year they had some that were in baggies already, so you could just put them in your vest and keep on moving. Just a little tidbit
Nice.
of information. My favorite food was the French fries. I believe they were at the Dargan Bend aid station, but salty French fries all day. I wish they were like in my pockets and in my vest and everywhere.
Maybe you could request some to-go baggies of French fries for this year.
I really should.
So yeah, that would be my favorite food as well from 2 years ago when I ran with Katie and Robert as well. All right, are you gonna have a crew or are you gonna run the race on your own?
I am super excited this year. Megan is coming back to crew for me, but my daughter Sarah and her boyfriend Shane are also going to be in town and they're going to help out. So I'm really excited to share the day with them.
I am a go it alone. The one thing I can say that's just a little asterisk on that is that I typically steal someone else's crew for my shoe change. I put a bag with this year I'm going to use my friend Kara's boyfriend, I believe. Taylor is going to have my bag with Kara's bag, and I'll have my shoe change, maybe change out my vest, grab anything else I need, but then I will live off the aid stations and whatever I can carry the rest of the way.
I will do something similar. I'll have somebody at Weaverton with my shoes for changing. If not, I'm going to look really awkward on the trail carrying my 2 road racing shoes. But I think Luke has volunteered to be at Weaverton for me. So I would definitely have a crew along the way. And I know we didn't talk about this in the podcast, but crew is allowed at Weaverton at, help me out, Antietam and Taylor's Landing.
And Tatum
Okay.
Taylor's
Yep.
Landing.
Yep. And that's
Yes,
all.
and an email will come out
Yeah.
the week of the race that has those Google Maps links in there for you.
All right. Handheld, vest, or none.
So I am definitely a vest. I will start the race with 2 500 ml flasks. I'll swap out those 205 ml flasks at Weaverton and then keep them filled at all the aid stations as we go.
I'm also using a vest. I actually last year did one vest over the AT section. When I changed my shoes, I swapped out my vest so I didn't have to repack it or grab things out of a bag. When I am in the middle of a race, my mind gets flustered about what I need to grab, and so I just switched the vest and it worked really well. So why fix what's wait, don't fix what's not broken? Yeah, that's it.
And I am a handheld runner. All right. Yes or no? Okay, follow directions on this one. Yes or no?
Sorry.
Are you changing shoes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, great job, guys. All right. All right, next question. We got three more here. Which is your favorite section of the course? Appalachian Trail, C&O Canal Towpath, or the paved hilly road?
Despite the name of this podcast, my favorite section is the AT.
The road.
My favorite section is the towpath. That should not surprise anyone. All right. If you're gonna attend the after party, which is at the same place packet pickup is at, or you're gonna go home and go straight to bed.
I am definitely going to attend the after party for that free pizza and beer.
After party.
And if Katie's going to the after party, I'm going to the after party. So that's where I'll be. Last question for you guys. You're going to check the weather. Have you already been checking the weather a month out, or are you going to check the weather the day before?
I started checking the weather yesterday-ish, but I'm not going to get too excited about it until we're 2 or 3 days out.
I started checking the weather a month ago and have checked twice a day every day since.
And I didn't even know the weather forecast goes out this far. I'll check it Friday night.
AccuWeather for those people who want the month out.
All right, guys. Well, this was really fun. I'm glad we were able to get together tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, guys.
Of course.
Hey, I do have one last thing to say.
Okay.
We might as well end with the famous quote that I have heard Mike Spindler say many times. Less than 0.1% of the U.S. population has ever finished a 50-mile foot race. So whether that's going to be you this year or in a future year, you can be that part of that 1% or 1/10 of 1%.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Next week, I think we are going to do whatever Chris and I want to talk about first, some current running topics, and then I believe it's Chris's turn to interview me a little bit.
That'll be fun. Looking forward to it.